Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, who's excited for today's Barca match. And also, as we were getting ready for the show, you asked me, it's funny, the timing on this. You asked me if I had listened to Leangelo's new track. I think it's called Tweaker. I was just reading, this is such an old man thing to say. I was reading about it in the New York Times right before you asked me this.
Sure.
Did you listen?
No, and I need to because I've been playing phone tag with LeVar to sort of, I'm okay. Like the balls are back. Like all three of them are doing great. And I realized I'm going to call him after the show. I probably should listen to the track before I call him. So I might need to go to the New York Times and read about it and then listen so I know what I'm talking about.
So Dame Dalla, one Dame Lillard, who is, I guess, like at present the best professional athlete rapper, had given it full marks. So I did listen to it, and it was fine. It was fine. I don't think I'm the demo on this. He's like so young. I'm a much more like classic old school hip hop person because we're both old now, but I wish him nothing but Godspeed and Godspeed to the Ball family as well. All right. Later in the show, Bill, we're going to do Team of the Night, but today we're excited about this. Somehow, Bill, we are basically functionally at the mid-season point of the NBA season. Some teams are usually right around 39, 40, 41 games played so far this season. So we're going to do our mid-season awards. And before we get into that, you and I did a preseason prediction show. So let's throw up the graphic and see who we predicted would win some of these awards this season. And just top line thoughts here. You and I both had SGA for MVP. That's looking pretty good. Rookie of the Year is an absolute disaster. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Coach of the Year selection is looking pretty good. DPOY looking pretty good. I think our sixth man of the year, you're looking much better than me.
Only by comparison. I'm not sure that I'm anywhere in the ballpark of Malik Monk winning. But I got to say, John, those are serviceable predictions because often these things can go very, very badly, very, very quickly.
Yeah, not bad from us. This is much better. I was actually a little worried about this because our podcast producer, Aaron, said he was going to go dig this up. And at first I was like, nah, maybe you don't. Because I had in my mind thought that we had really blown this thing, but it doesn't look too bad to start. I do have some tweaks, though, at the mid-season point as we move forward. Let's start with MVP, Bill. Preseason, we both had SGA. At present, he's actually the odds-on favorite, depending on which odds maker you like. The odds that I have here are SGA at -170, at Joker at +145. Are you sticking with SGA or are you going Joker? And you have a vote.
Yes, I do. I'll say this. This vote is usually, or at least the last few years, has often been excruciating for a variety of reasons. This feels easier because there's only two guys you have to worry about. Right now it's SGA, and we've talked on the pod throughout the year about the fact that the Nuggets aren't high enough for me to make this really a contest just yet, even though obviously Nikola Jokic would be in contention. They're starting to get a little bit of momentum. I'm still on the SGA train here, but you can make a case for make a case for the big guy in Denver. I think after that, the next two guys in the ballot are pretty easy. I'll probably go Giannis and then Tatum. The fifth name is the hard one. But yeah, today, SGA, I think, is the clear guy because he's the best player on the best team. And maybe a little differently than Jason Tatum in the past, I think SGA is also clearly one of the two or three best players in the game on top of being the lead guy for the Thunder.
Yeah, and I want to get into that fifth guy because you're right. Once Luka went down, who enters the fifth person conversation became the sticking point here. I think I'm going Joker. This is a really tough one. One, I love watching SGA play. I was an early adopter on the Thunder. He's the best player on the best team, I believe, in the NBA. I think, though, he has a lot more talent around him. And don't look now, Bill, but here come the Denver Nuggets, who are, with the Kings losing last night, all of a sudden one of the hottest teams in the NBA, having won 4 in a row. And we've talked a lot about how, Jamal Murray, he had a good game last night, his best game of the season high 45 points last night, but he has had an up and down season. He's been inconsistent. They don't have a lot of shooting around them. They have a really thin bench. Aaron Gordon was hurt. Joker is the engine that makes that team go. And I think that he makes all the players around him so much better, up to and including a guy that you and I have talked about at length, especially yesterday on the show, Russell Westbrook, who we were both out on. All of a sudden we're back in on. He's been revitalized. I think that's the best case for Joker right there. If Joker can turn Russell Westbrook into a useful starter, what can't he do, Bill?
I have Russ on my list for award later in the show, which makes your point exactly. So I don't have anxiety. I'm very lucky in that respect. But on this one thing on earth, there's one thing on earth that gives me anxiety, and that is messing up the MVP vote. Where I'm going to look back years later and I'm going to have screwed up the number one vote. And so normally, you're hitting some anxious chords for me because there is an argument for Joker, and I don't want in 2 or 3 years to look back and feel like maybe some people felt about the Derrick Rose vote when he got that award, whatever that was, 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, and maybe it actually should have been LeBron. And I'll say this, normally when I'm writing stories or writing columns, I don't read anything that is in the same sort of sphere because I don't want to be influenced by it. I just want to sort of come up with my own thing, and if it's right or wrong, great. You can't do that in the MVP award. And so I do worry sometimes, am I inadvertently going to get pulled into this? And it's stupid and it's silly, but it's human nature. Am I going to get pulled into this gravitational force field of Joker's won so many, we can't give it to him again, we've got to give it to the new shiny toy? And you're making a compelling case that whatever SGA is doing, Joker's got no help. I know he had a little help yesterday, but for the most part, his teammates have not been particularly impressive. He's been carrying them. So I've got SGA, but I'm already capitulating in my own mind because of you, John, because it is a tough call.
It's really close. And you know what? I'm going to put your mind at ease here to the extent that you have any anxiety. You shouldn't, because both of them are worthy candidates. And I think it's like 1 and 1A. And whoever you end up picking, we talked through it last year and it was a pretty easy selection. And actually, the number 5 guy was the hard selection when we were discussing it. And I think it will be again this season. With these two guys, whoever you pick and whoever wins will be a worthy winner of the MVP. Let's talk about that 5th guy, because the top 4 are basically locked once Luka went out. So you've got SGA and Joker at 1 and 2 in whichever order. And then you've got Giannis and Tatum at 3 and 4 in whatever order. Those are going to be your top 4 guys, unless barring another massive injury or some weird circumstance that we haven't foreseen yet. 5 is where it gets interesting. And I think there's 2 candidates on my end, but what are you thinking for who ends up as 5?
So
or in
there
the
are
top
2
5.
clear candidates. Yeah, there's 2 clear candidates in Cat and Wemby for me, but I keep thinking about the numbers of the guy that I'm about to say don't hold up to this. But Donovan Mitchell is an important player, is sort of a high-level player for the best team maybe in the NBA. He's not going to get on that ballot, but I just want to name shout him. I'm going to give him a little love. I've got Wemby, and look, things can change. And a few years ago when Embiid won the MVP, not this late in the season, but in December, Embiid was a long shot to be MVP, and there were some injuries that happened and form, and frankly, the fact Embiid made a case for voters who didn't want to vote for the same people over and over again. So things can change for Cat. I have Cat off this list, and you tell me if you think this logic isn't sound, because we're parsing millimeters now to try to find some separation for me between Wembanyama and Karl-Anthony Towns. The Knicks last year were a 50 or 52 win team without Cat. They were the second team in the Eastern Conference without Cat. And as great as they are this year, and especially offensively, they're actually not on track to be the 2nd seed in the East. Obviously, they're on track to be the 3rd. There's a big drop-off after Boston and the Cavs. Whereas Wembanyama has taken a team that we all thought was going to be maybe in that Brooklyn-Portland zone, if not winning a lot of games. They are competitive. They are on track to be a play-in team. There are nights where they're dangerous. They're outperforming, I think, and they're obviously their future is brighter. Most nights or many nights, they're outperforming the Lakers, the Suns, and the Warriors. Not technically the Lakers right now, but I think they're trending that direction. And that's all the second-year big man. So I've got Wemby by a little bit because of what he's carrying, but it's the same argument to a lesser degree of what you're making for Joker. So I'm going to take Wemby over Cat. Again, it makes me rethink Joker over SGA.
It's such a tough call. Last year, you'll remember that it was kind of split with that 5th vote between MVP and All-NBA, right? Because it ended up with Jalen Brunson as the number 5 MVP candidate, but then for All-NBA, Tatum ended up getting that last slot. And I wonder if that's I wonder if that's kind of what's going to end up happening here. For me right now, it's really close. On MVP, I'm going to edge just a little bit to Cat here, just because he's having a career year. He's really changed the complexion of their offense. They're a better, yes, I totally agree with you that the Spurs are ahead of schedule, and that's all due to Wemby being like leaps and bounds better than anybody anticipated he'd be 2 years into his career. And he's going to be on my awards list a little bit later, and he's going to get all NBA consideration. But for MVP candidate, Cat averaging, he's shooting a career best from the floor, career best from 3, most rebounds per game in his career, and the most points per game that he's scored in 5 seasons. I mean, he's been everywhere. He really is the engine that makes that team go offensively. I just like on the MVP conversation, I'm giving him the slight edge, but I think I'd probably go. I know I'm splitting hairs here.
It's so
but
hard.
I think I'd probably go. It's so hard. I think I'd probably go Wemby on All NBA. But we've got another half a season to figure this out, and like maybe something will develop as we go along.
Yeah, look, let me add this too. This is like, it feels like I'm taking shots at Karl Anthony Towns, and I'm not. I just think Wemby is a markedly better player, and that is not a shot at Cat. It's just this is the last year Wemby's not going to be the clear favorite to be the MVP every year starting the year for the next 8, 9, 10, 12 years. He's already at that level. And so when it's that close, I ask myself, if you switch these guys and you I mean, you'd rather have Wemby on the Knicks than Karl Anthony Towns. You'd rather have Wemby on the Spurs than Karl Anthony Towns. So that's one of the differential realities for me. But you are right. Cat arrived in New York with massive amounts of pressure. He had to bring actual value to justify the changes that they made, and at least offensively it's worked. So it's a bummer that the NBA, if the NBA is watching, and I know they do sometimes, we could just have 6 spots on the ballot, and then it'd be a lot easier for those of us that have to do this.
Just expand it. Actually, we're going to need more than 6, maybe 7, because apologies to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who you mentioned. I think some of those guys, a lot of those guys are having career years, Mobley and Garland, and you mentioned Donovan Mitchell. I think that because they're greater than the sum of their parts, they're kind of taking away from each other, because on any given night, any of those 3 guys could be the best player on the best team in the NBA record-wise. And they're not getting as much love here on the MVP conversation as they probably should. Quick break here, and then we're going to continue with our mid-season award show. A lot of fun ones coming up. We got Coach of the Year. We've got Most Improved. And then unfortunately, but it has to be discussed, we're going to do Rookie of the Year next. That's coming up on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can get us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, leave a review. And then on Spotify, if you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can leave us a comment about the show. All right, Bill, unlike the MVP conversation where there is no wrong answer between the 2 top guys, for the Rookie of the Year, there is no right answer between all of them. Jared McCain, early in the season, looked like he was going to be the runaway winner. And then, of course, because he plays for the Sixers, doom was foisted upon him. He's out for the year with an ACL injury, which leaves us with a conundrum. I was kind of crowdsourcing this on Blue Sky yesterday, where I was talking to some other like-minded basketball-heavy people, and everybody is having the same reaction to this, which is shrug emoji. I don't know what we do.
I love that you went to the no right answer, because I was checking in with some different GMs yesterday about other stuff around the league, and I asked one guy who, just thinking about this show, who we thought should be Rookie of the Year, and John, his answer was, he said, I don't care, which is not normally the answer that I get. So here's what I thought. I'm gonna turn to our more highfalutin brothers and sisters in the journals of business who award the Pulitzer Prize every year. And if you remember, sometimes the esteemed judges decide that there is not an entry that it rises to the level, and they will not award a Pulitzer Prize in a certain category. I remember 10, 11, 12, several years ago, there was feature writing on the newspaper side where a prize was not awarded. So again, if the good folks at the NBA league office are watching, John, if they're still open to the idea of me maybe reworking the rules a little bit, what about, because you get the ballot and it has every rookie in the league on a list, and you select them in order. What about a pass? Just a straight nope. And if a majority. Because honestly, none of these guys, there's a long ways to go. There's a bunch of season left. When I was younger, we used to race turtles. And the thrilling thing about being from Iowa and racing turtles is they're all so slow. Okay. The race is amazing, even though no one's fast. This is like that. It's going to be a hell of a competition down the stretch, even though it's going to be hard to watch. What about nobody as the answer to the question?
I like the answer that you're coming up with here. This is a group project, and nobody did the work. Like we have a group assignment here, and nobody has bothered to go in and do the effort on it. All right, so we're gonna just discuss this. You and I preseason both had Edie, and I thought early on it looked like a pretty good pick. His
Yeah.
minutes are so inconsistent and he's in foul trouble so much. I do think that he's been a good addition to that team. Even the other night against Houston, where his numbers, when you looked at the box score, was like 2 points and 7 rebounds, and he ended up fouling out of the game. I was like, man, that didn't look like what I saw on the floor. I think that he does have an impact. I just don't know that the stats are going to be there and the minutes are going to be difficult for him to overcome. So I'm putting him to the side for a second. Alex Sarr is a guy who came in this past month and won Rookie of the Month for the Wizards in December. Now, the problem is multiple here. The Wizards are absolutely horrendous. And do we trust Alex Sarr to continue here? He's the first Rookie of the Month, by the way, for the Wizards since Bradley Beal in 2013. I guess right now, both by the odds and by the eye test, he's the odds-on favorite. But like, that's damning with faint praise here, Bill.
It's tricky because normally and rookies, obviously, who are in contention to win these awards, who put up big numbers, are usually doing it because they're on bad teams. Bad teams get to draft high in the lottery. That's how it works. It's not as if Sarr is putting up massive numbers on a really bad team. He's just putting up numbers. And I'll say this. I was talking to some folks in that Wizards organization recently. They like Sarr. They don't love him. I mean, I'm sure they would push him to be Rookie of the Year because he's their guy, but it's not as if their conversations internally and talking to folks are like Stephon Castle's a guy. If you talk to people in San Antonio, obviously Wemby outshines everybody. They think he's going to be great and a great fit for what they do, and I think that's a guy that should be in consideration. So yeah, so I think I'm sure he's the betting favorite. He's got the numbers. I'm not sure he's that good as much. Again, circling back, the other players haven't been that impactful yet, or good, depending on the guy.
So I want to, because you bring up Castle here, and I wanted to throw Jalen Wells out there too. If we're talking about what I've seen in terms of their basketball ability from this group that you see on the screen right now between Sarr and Castle, and even Issy has been like a lone bright spot in a really dark year for the Pelicans, but I think he's more of like just a really good, useful rotation piece and starter. Wells and Stephon Castle look like good basketball players to me. Jalen Wells, who the Grizzlies are just really good at identifying people and players that other organizations pass on. Jalen Wells has more starts than the rest of the rookie class combined. He's been really good for a team that has aspirations to go deep into the Western Conference playoffs. And who knows, like if things break right, they could be a finals contender. They're a really good team, depending on what happens with John Morant. But he's been a really valuable, useful piece for them early in his career. And then Stephon Castle, as you mentioned, they're high on him for a reason. Everybody can take a look at this kid and go, okay, the stats might not be there right now. It's Wemby's team. You still got Chris Paul out there. And so, they're trying to win more games now than they anticipated winning. But forecasting 2-3 years down the line, that kid's going to be legit.
So I looking at those odds, it made me realize if you are watching this show on CBS Sports Network and you are inclined to gamble, and I'm not allowed to gamble on this stuff because I vote on it, but I think there's potential value here because first of all, voters aren't paying that much attention to this award because they're not paying that much attention to these players. Most of these guys aren't that impactful. And so I think what happens the last third of the season, the last half of the season, might have a huge impact in a vacuum, and it's not a vacuum because these guys haven't been very good. So there's this opportunity for Castle or Edey or any of these guys to really make this push. The Memphis thing is interesting because it might cannibalize some of the votes because the reality is you do have certain writers and voters who pay attention to certain teams or certain subsets of teams or whatever region they're in. I think Castle, he'll have to play more, but if he sort of takes another minor step up, and the Spurs, and I think they will, John, continue to be really important. They're playing important games and the games matter, and everybody's tuning in to Wemby because they want to watch Wemby, and so he's going to get eyes on him. Just from a gambling perspective and just who wins the award perspective, I wouldn't sleep on Castle.
Yeah, you're right. The odds are there, right? And look, it's not like you look at Alex Sarr and go, he's got this thing locked up. A month ago,
right
before the injury, it was Jared McCain. And before that, it looked like it was going to be Edey before Nick Nurse looked down his bench and went, oh, yeah, maybe I should try playing Jared McCain on a team that is desperate for scoring and is having a terrible season. So the rookie class has been so in flux all season long that it would not surprise me at all if all of a sudden Stephon Castle really found a groove and then all of a sudden took off. This thing is wide open for a reason.
Would I lose my vote? It takes a lot for the NBA to revoke someone's vote because they like to. Okay. If I voted for Bronny third on my ballot, would that be a step too far?
You know what? Bronny and
The joy that he
others
brought?
receiving votes and consideration just for
That'll be terrible.
engineering his dad, engineering his way into a professional basketball career
Right.
and a guaranteed contract in the
That's
NBA
it.
this season is really amazing. Is there anybody else on this in this class that we're forgetting or overlooking here? I mean, Reese Shea isn't on this list. It's a
Reece
really
is
thin
probably
class.
somebody. He'll get some votes. He's fine. I mean, what's really interesting about this is that we always have these projections about drafts where we sort of think a draft's going to be really good or really bad. It doesn't always live up. There's no surprises. Everyone in the NBA thought this draft was going to be, I apologize to the players in the draft, garbage. And it has largely been garbage. So maybe some of these players will be really good in the years ahead. A lot of guys, especially guys where it doesn't come easy, take, and you know this, John, 3 years to develop. I mean, Giannis is a player. There's a lot of players. But sure, you can put Reece Shea on the list. There's no one that's been Sarr's the leading guy, and he's just been kind of meh.
It's so bad. We got to take another break. I have one more question for you about the Rookie of the Year class. We'll do on the other side, because as I was talking to people about this, the question became, is this the worst rookie class in recent memory? We're going to discuss that on the other side, as well as Coach of the Year, DPOY, and a whole bunch of other midseason awards. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John Gonzalez and Bill Reiter here, continuing our mid-season awards show. All right, Bill, so this rookie class, a lot of people have dumped on it. We've dumped on it. So as I was talking to people online about this yesterday, somebody had posited, is this the worst recent class or is this the worst rookie class in recent memory? And one of the classes that a lot of people bring up when they have this conversation is the year that Malcolm Brogdon won the award, when Joel Embiid, who had missed his first 2 seasons, he played like 30-something games. Everybody thought that he was the best player, but he hadn't played enough games, so Brogdon won it. Is this class worse than that Brogdon winning class?
Oh, a million times. I mean, look, fun fact, one of my favorite sort of trivia factoids about the NBA is if you look at guys that have had a 50-40-90 season, 50% or better from the field, 40 from 3, 90 from the free throw line, it is a who's who of Hall of Fame. It's Larry Bird and Reggie Miller and Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry and other names. And Malcolm Brogdon from his year in Milwaukee. So yeah, I mean, like, that guy was, serviceable player. Who else is in that draft? There's other. You were just telling me.
Yeah, it's the Brogdon winning year was light years better than this class. So Brogdon won it. Sarge finished second. He's been a professional basketball player. Joel Embiid came in third. Buddy Hield, who's had a good career as a sharpshooter, is fourth. Willie Hernan Gomez, shouts to his brother who ended up in the movie Hustle. Jamal Murray, the artist formerly known as Marquise Chris, remember him? Jaylen Brown was in that class. Jaylen Brown, remember, picked third in the draft. Everybody thought he was a little bit of a bust. Now all of a sudden, history rewrites itself that he's been very good. So yes, that class was light years better than this class. But, right now, maybe it's hard to project some of these guys going forward. Right.
Yeah. I mean,
that's enough.
Hopefully some of these guys grow into it. But yeah, look, you said it nicer than I did. The class is garbage so far.
It's not good. It's not a good class. All right, let's move on to Coach of the Year. Preseason, you had Taylor Jenkins, really good pick. I had Ime Udoka, who also a pretty good pick. This is Kenny Atkinson's award to lose here, Bill. He is the heavy favorite here. And for a reason, the Cavs have had a fantastic season. As I mentioned earlier, they're greater than the sum of their parts. They've been the best team in the Eastern Conference and record-wise in the NBA all season long. He's going to win this award barring some unforeseen circumstance. So let's get into who the runner-up might be. Other candidates include Jamal Mosley, who has been fantastic despite injuries in Orlando to Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner early in the season. We mentioned Ime, Taylor Jenkins, Ty Lue is on this list. Mark Daigneault won last year. He's not going to win. JB Biggerstaff has revitalized the Detroit Pistons, Bill, who already have more wins than they had all of last season. You see the list there on the screen. After Kenny, who do you like?
Yeah, so I actually gave this a lot of thought today because you're right. Number one is easy, and the other ones are all really deserving. I like your preseason prediction at number 2. For me, I think it's Ime Udoka. What he has done with that team, that young team, where they are, and what we thought was going to be a brutal and remarkably competitive Western Conference, that's my guy. I think Taylor Jenkins probably gets the final spot on my ballot, although wow, there's a really good case for Mosley and what he's done with that team with all the injuries. You bring up Bickerstaff. I probably wouldn't rule out Dagnall yet, even though he's not going to win. That's a really, really good crew. But for me, John, credit to you. I think Udoka's been the second best coach in terms of the job that he's done so far this year after Kenny and what he's accomplished with Cleveland.
I mean, and credit to you because you know your audience and you know how much I love the Houston Rockets, who, while offensively, well, they have the 11th best offensive rating. They can't shoot. They are a really bad shooting team. But I was saying this to you on yesterday's show. They do have some flaws, and yet, despite those flaws, second best team in the Western Conference, right? So just imagine what would happen if they could figure out how to get the ball to go in the net, how much better their offense would be and how much better their prospects would be. So yes, I think Ime is really onto something here, and he has an idea of how he wants his team to play, right? If you don't play defense, you're not going to play for him. And I think that that's a really good place to start. And then, what he's gotten out of Amon Thompson and some of these Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore and these bench pieces, he's been great. I just want to once again reiterate how good Jamal Mosley has been. When Paolo Banchero went down, and then Franz Wagner went down, and then Mo Wagner was lost for the entire season, and then you lost a bunch of games from Jalen Suggs, who took a step forward and could have been on the most improved player list. You lose all those guys on a team where you and our podcast producer Aaron point out all the time, that's a really offensively challenged team. That team should have sunk in the standings like a stone, and they have been fourth pretty consistently all season, and I think are pretty clearly the fourth best team in the Eastern Conference. Man, credit to Jamal. He has really done a great job with that team.
And by the way, this reminds me of what MVP awards have felt like in the past, where you've got 5 spots and you've got 8 names. There's 3 spots on the Coach of the Year award, and there are 5 or 6 names. There's probably more if we were to expand this conference. Because you're right, Mosley does in a normal year. Mosley could be the Coach of the Year, and he may not even be 2 on some ballots reasonably. That's how good some of the coaching jobs have been out there.
And by the way, we didn't even get to our guy, Joe Mazzulla, who you and I both love. Like we had him, hey, what if the Celtics end up winning the East and they're defending champs and he's a good coach and maybe we were wrong about him. He's not even in the conversation right now. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year, which much like Coach of the Year is pretty much a lock barring some unforeseen circumstance. It's going to be Victor Wembanyama, who is the heavy betting favorite here, Bill. He leads the league in blocks per game by 1,000,000 miles. He's also everywhere with his hands and steals, and he can switch 1 through 5, and he's long and athletic. And Bill, this is going to be not just his first DPOY, but one of, I don't know, it's hard for me to forecast, absent injury, when he won't win the award in the next, 4, 5, 6 seasons.
John, absent injury, I don't think it's outrageous to suggest at a very conservative clip he's going to win 8 of these and 5 MVPs, and we're going to be having some crazy conversations down the line. I am with you that it is Wemby's award. I would vote Wemby number 1 on my ballot today. I'm sure he's a huge betting favorite. Can I get your perspective on a philosophical view I have on this award that runs counter to Wembanyama that's going to be challenging for me? Because this is the one award where, maybe along with MVP, where a team's performance relative to this award is significant. And I have always had a rule that a team that if you're going to be Defensive Player of the Year, your team has to be really, really good defensively. Has to be outstanding defensively. When the Spurs they're good. They're like 12th or 13th, depending on the day, depending where you're looking, defensive rating. But Triple J and the Grizzlies, they're a top 5 defense. The Cavs, Evan Mobley, are they're not quite as good, but they're really good defensively. And so
top 10.
It makes me, right, 7, 8. It makes me, I'm voting Wemby, but the separation's not as wide for me. If at the end of the year, Memphis is the 2nd or 3rd defense in the league, and that defense propels them to be a top 2 or 3 team in the West. Wemby individually is amazing, and maybe it's the wrong way. I'm curious what you think. Maybe I need to think about it differently, but I do think about this not just as an individual excellence award, but how that individual excellence actually translates to a team's defense.
I think Wemby makes us think about it differently, right? Because imagine what that defense would look like without him. I think that he is single-handedly making that team a functional defense. Not great, but usable. Not a terrible defense. You take him off of that team, all of a sudden I think he'd be in the tank defensively. I also think that his metrics, his defensive metrics, and just the eye test are just undeniable defensively. There's nobody on that floor that he can't guard, and he alters shots. I mean, when it's kind of hilarious to watch guards try to get into the paint and just just the prospect of Wemby lingering on the edge of the lane and how they'll just like veer right out, right? Like curl out. They're driving in and go, nope, that's a terrible idea. I do not want to challenge him at the rim. I'm going to get out of here. I think it's pretty clearly him. I do want to talk about the other two guys, though, because the Cavs have had an excellent season. And as you mentioned, they've been a really good, surprisingly good defensive team, top 10. And Evan Mobley has taken a step forward. And I got an idea for an award for him a little bit later in the show. And then Triple J, we talked about this yesterday on yesterday's show. He might be the best Grizzly. He is having an exceptional year. He's a former defensive player of the year. The problem with him is, despite the fact that he's been really good, I think he's all-star worthy. I think he's all NBA worthy. His minutes, Taylor Jenkins likes to play a lot of guys and tries to keep his guys fresh. He's basically the anti-Tibbs. He's averaging like 30 minutes a game. I don't know if that's enough to get him over the hump.
So I have written down in front of me, and again, I don't feel amazing about it, but I think it's right. I have Wemby 1, I have Mobley 2, I have Triple J 3, and I think that's it. I mean, there isn't a fourth or a fifth guy like some of these other awards where you have to sort of really parse it. But the Grizzlies have the best defense of the three teams that we're talking about, and Triple J, that defense has carried that team at times when Ja hasn't been around, when they've had some other injuries. I mean, they are defensively, that is the catalyst for them, the way the offense has been the catalyst for Cleveland, where at times the defense has let them down a little bit. So it's a really tough, and this is a award that can change too. I think you're right. Wemby's going to win. But again, for me, there are things that can change this, especially at the 2 slot on who goes 2 on that ballot.
I think right now I'd flip them and go Triple J 2 and Mobley 3, but no wrong answers there between those two guys. They both had really exceptional seasons. All right, one more quick break. And then on the other side, 2 more awards that we're excited for: 6th Man of the Year and Most Improved. Per usual, most seasons, that is a wide open award. So I can't wait to hear who you have for that one. That's coming up on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can also find us on YouTube. We are live most days, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern. Come and check us out at Beyond the Arc CBS. Hit the like button, leave us a comment, and subscribe. And then the little bell symbol, click on that. You'll know when we go live. All right, Bill, 6th Man of the Year. Preseason, you had Malik Monk. Could have won it last year, then got injured, ended up being Naz Reid. I had Dante DiVincenzo, who was awesome for the Knicks, was terrible coming off the bench. And then they moved him into the starting lineup, and he's been better since being moved into the starting lineup, but I think we can eliminate him. Who knows about Malik? Favorites here are Peyton Pritchard, who's been excellent for the Celtics, DeAndre Hunter, who is easily having the best season of his career, although that's a pretty low bar. You got my guy, Amen Thompson there. Brad Beal, oh no, womp womp. Russell Westbrook, now a starter, and then Malik Beasley. I think it's basically down to Pritchard, Hunter, and Amen Thompson. Which way are you going?
You just drop womp womp. Oh, I can't. Yeah. That is all my 12-year-old kid says. He comes out of the bedroom and just spits Kendrick Lamar lyrics at me about Drake and then goes back into his bedroom. That is very funny.
Me and Henry.
So, you and Henry living that life. Pritchard's the vote, right? I think Pritchard's the guy. Yeah. After that, can I make a case for a name on there that I can't believe I'm going to roll for? I like Russell Westbrook because the thing is, you're allowed to start for a stretch and still be the 6th Man of the Year if it's just a temporary thing. And so Westbrook has been an impact player the last few weeks for Denver as they play well. So I'm keeping an eye on him. I think Amen Thompson's a guy. You love this guy. I'm giving you catnip here. I really do. That is a player who could win. By the way, if Houston finishes 2nd this year, I think that there's going to be a really big push to find a way to award some of those players for something. And so, again, I don't think Udoka is going to catch Atkinson. I think that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I think Thompson's a guy that could make some traction. I mean, obviously, we saw the odds. Pritchard's the person I'd vote for today, but this award is open. And I think today I'd go Pritchard 1, Thompson 2. Man, DeAndre Hunter's a good shout. I have this soft spot for Russell Westbrook all of a sudden. I want him to be 3, so I'm going to say 3, even though I don't quite entirely believe it, but a part of me believes it.
You and I have really come around on Russell Westbrook. I think it's Peyton Pritchard. He's the guy. But for the other two guys, for Russ and Amen Thompson, I just want to make the case that they should be starters. In Russell Westbrook's situation, we talked about this. His on-off numbers playing with Joker. When you had YOLO Russell Westbrook coming off the bench for previous teams, where they were trying to put a square peg into a round hole and ask him to do things they didn't want to do when he had previously been an MVP and a high usage rate guy and loves to dribble the air out of the ball and loves to jack up threes early in the shot clock. That is not a useful Russell Westbrook. Starter Russell Westbrook for the Nuggets next to Joker has been a revelation. And if he can keep his mind right and just do what they're asking him to do, the Nugs have a chance to be really competitive in the playoffs this season. And it's like a surprise for me. And then Amin Thompson, Jabari Smith gets hurt, breaks his hand, is out for a month, Bill. Amin Thompson was their super sub off the bench. I don't know how they take him out of the starting lineup when Jabari comes back.
He's awesome.
Maybe it's Jabari staying and moving Dylan Brooks so that you like him and they need the scoring, but it's a good problem to have. But both of these guys, I think, should be starters.
By the way, I want to circle back to the smartest thing. I think we've had some smart things on the show. The smartest thing I've heard on the show today came from you. And it is if Joker can make Westbrook give up the YOLO life, as you described it, and make me, of all people, praise Russell Westbrook on national television, Joker,
what can he do?
What can he? Because it has like his presence or whatever it is about that. But I think it's just how good Joker is, and maybe how Westbrook believes there's a ceiling to this team that's legitimate in a way that he hasn't probably since he left Oklahoma City. It has done the thing that it's pulling the sword from the stone. Russell Westbrook is a team player all of a sudden. Russell Westbrook, and you or producer Aaron dropped this stat, is shooting 42% from the three-point line in the fourth quarter. Like, who is this guy?
He's having a career best year from three. He's been awesome great in the corners. And again, not to get too nerd, hipster NBA on this thing, but Amin Thompson, just keep him in the starting lineup, please, and thank you. All right, most improved player, Bill. This is the one I'm most excited about because this is kind of like an eye of the beholder. Every year, it's like people are just voting however they want to go. So I got two guys that I think are 1 and 2, and I keep going back and forth, but who do you have on your list?
Okay, so we're going to be at odds here. I'm just preparing you, my friend.
Okay.
This pisses me off. So I get so angry. Every year is just what guy was pretty great last year but is having a break. Most improved shouldn't be the natural trajectory of a star like Cade Cunningham. That's all I'll vote for because the rules aren't clearly defined. But why not Wembanyama? Why doesn't Wembanyama win this every year for the next 7 years? So I'm just, again, this is the third time that I'm making a plea to the NBA league office to change some of these rules. If you have won some kind of award, like Tyler Hero, who's been a sixth man of the year, if I remember correctly, or you've been an all-NBA player like Cade Cunningham, you shouldn't – John, it's not like Cade Cunningham was awful last year and couldn't shoot and averaged 3 points a game. I would rather see like a Jalen Johnson, who's what? Is he in year 4? Like his growth has been slower. And what he's done for the Hawks this year has been really, really impressive. I'd rather see that. I love Evan Mobley. Mobley's been a good player for a long time. If you're on a max deal, if you've won an award, if you've been, anyway, I went on a tangent. I'll vote Cade Cunningham because that's how the award's set up. But this award annoys me to, obviously, as you can tell, to absolutely no end. How it is worked, how it is done.
You bring up an interesting idea that like a player like Wemby, if he just keeps leveling up every year, could he be like MVP, DPOY, and like the perpetual most improved because every year he's adding something else to his game and he keeps leveling up? That's an interesting idea. I like that you called out Jalen Johnson. He was on my list. He's been really good. Let me make the case for why I do think it's either Cade Cunningham or Evan Mobley. And I hear what you're saying. These are both good players previously, but the jump that both of them have taken, in Evan Mobley's respect, going from a guy who only sort of intermittently flirted with the three, and we weren't sure whether or not he fit next to Jared Allen, and the Cavs weren't sure whether or not this core could work. All of a sudden, unlocking his talent and being like, no, I'm one of the best big men in the NBA. I can play inside or out. I can guard your 3, 4, and 5, no problem. I'm going to give you a bad night at both ends of the floor almost every single game. He has really taken a step forward. And then Cade Cunningham, Bill, we talked about it. The Pistons were horrendous last year. They already have a greater win total at the midway point than they had all of last season. Cade Cunningham is the main reason why. They just won at the Garden the other night, put up 140 points. He had 36, 29, I believe, in the second half. I'm going to run these numbers past you. Right now, he is averaging 24.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, and 9.5 assists per game. The other NBA players in history with those numbers, Oscar Robertson did it 6 times. Joker's done it twice. James Harden has done it twice. Westbrook has done it twice. LeBron and Luka have done it once. That's the list, Bill. That's where he is. Yeah.
Every one of those players have won an MVP other than Luka too. I mean, that's not just a Hall
where
of
he
Fame
is right
list.
now.
That's it. I mean,
I think it's him.
On the Mobley thing, I'm going to gently push back and say everything you said is so on point for why Kenny Atkinson's the coach of the year, making it work next to Jared Allen, unlocking things that were there. So that just reinforces that. The Cade Cunningham thing is, it's just, by the way, it's my fault. It's not anyone else's. I'm just so annoyed every year at this award and superstar. I would love to reward players who his careers have cratered or never got off the ground. Cade Cunningham's not a surprise for me, right? There's not a surprise factor there, but what you just said is surprising in its level. And so maybe I need to rethink.
Yes. Think about it in terms of what you were saying about Wemby taking a level up, right? The level up for Cade Cunningham this season, he was a good player, but now I think that he's in a conversation with some generational talents and might be one of the best players of his age group. And that's really saying something. He has really stepped it up. He's been impressive this season.
You're kind of blowing my mind. And obviously the Pistons have been good this year. And you noted sort of their win total. This season, he's a top what player in the NBA? Top.
Yeah, we might be talking all NBA. If it's 15, then all of a sudden it's top. Yeah. It's all NBA consideration. Could be third team all NBA. We'll see how it shakes out. We're going to take one more time out, and then we're going to wrap up the show as we do every day with Team of the Night. That's on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc on CBS Sports Network. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc, wrapping up the show with our Team of the Night leaderboard. Now, sometimes when we do Team of the Night, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes we pick teams that you wouldn't expect us to pick because they amuse us or they lost a game that had some purpose, like the other night when the Nets lost a game to Utah. You see the Nets somehow have 3 selections there. That's mostly because when they lose, it's a good loss for them. I believe, Bill, that you've got one such selection for Team of the Night on today's show.
Runner-up will get you nothing, but the Bucks almost got here. Nice win. They've been inconsistent. They broke what had been the longest winning streak in the NBA. They made Mike Brown slightly happy, right? That storyline has gone away about his absence, enhancing Sacramento. But I gotta give it to Portland. I mean, you're in a battle royale to lose against Brooklyn, and the Cooper Flag sweepstakes are it's a mad dash to be as low on the totem pole as you can. Congratulations to the Portland Trailblazers for really getting it done on the Loser Bowl last night and finding a way to be really bad against an almost equally bad team. Portland, what is this? The second one for them. It was a big win and a big moment here on the show.
It's a big win for them.
Big
loss for them. Big win on the Team of the Night leaderboard. You know this, and producer Aaron knows this, but this is how sick I am. I ended up watching that game last night because it was just like the last game that was on television. I told myself I wasn't going to do it. I'm like, I'm going to put on a TV show or something else, read a book, maybe just to decompress a little bit. And I can't because I'm addicted. My team, I'm going to go actually positive here. I'm going to go with the Nuggets. Yes, they beat the Mavs without Luka and Kyrie. It was an easy win for them. But now because the Kings have lost, they've won 4 in a row, tied for the longest active streak. And here's the reason why. Jamal Murray, really inconsistent this season. Season high 45 points last night, Bill. 18 for 26 from the floor, 5 threes. They need him to be on track. That 2-man game with him and Joker is so pivotal to how they play. So maybe this is a harbinger of things to come because they need Jamal Murray to play like the good Jamal Murray.
But by the way, you're right. And I watched that and I thought, okay, if he can do that in the playoffs a couple of times, this Denver team becomes vastly different than what we've seen in the regular season. That's a really good. I like that. That's a good sign and a nice night for Denver.
We'll keep an eye on Jamal Murray and the Nuggets as they have the longest winning streak. That's going to do it for us today, though. We're going to be back at it tomorrow night. We're going to be live on YouTube following. I can't wait for this. The rematch of Cavs and OKC in OKC. On Thursday night should be a really good one. The first one last week was excellent. We're looking forward to another one tomorrow night. Come and join us over there at Beyond the Arc, CBS on YouTube. Again, live right after the game. But for now, for our NBA insider Bill Reiter, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.